Hello, everybody. This is Errol from Errol the Adventurer, the podcast. Today, while I was listening to a documentary, it was about um, Operation Stargate, not to be confused with Operation Starfish Prime. Operation Starfish Prime, well, that's the time where certain people wanted to see what would happen when you exploded nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere or in outer space for some reason. I couldn't imagine why. But that's not today's episode. Um, it may or may not be as interesting. But this is Operation Stargate. And this is one of the many programs um that the government, specifically a Central Intelligence Agency, had dabbled in. Um, there has been other agencies like the Army and stuff like that who's not only in the past, but I think I read a recent article that they still dabble in this, and that's extrasensory perception, be whatever form that may be. Because when you talk about extrasensory perception or sixth sense, um, predominantly they're talking about remote viewing, or what you would call clairvoyance, which doesn't really have to be viewing, per se. Um, it also can include telekinesis, or it can include clairvoyance, telekinesis. It could be mediumship, which is like talking to, you know, I guess spirits or ghosts or something like that. Then there's also like thought projection and possibly mind reading, which is, I guess, the opposite of thought projection. But either way, and a lot of that can be done like psychologically without even having a sixth sense. That's what kind of makes it so foggy, because there are also like psychological tricks to where you can achieve the same goals, but sometimes people who don't like readily know those psychological tricks um can do that. That really goes towards the mind reading and thought projection part, not so much telekinesis and clairvoyance. Telekinesis is where you can move things with your mind, or let's not say your mind, but somehow you can affect the material world around you without physically coming into contact with it. Now, keep in mind, guys, if this is your first time listening to me, I'm not in front of a computer, and I'm just going straight off what I've already looked into in the past. Um, I'm recording on my device, and I'm not editing the audio. I'm just running it straight through. So it's kind of like live, but it's not live, But I'm not editing it. I don't ever edit. Maybe I will in the future, but I like the authenticity of this all, because we all make mistakes, so I don't mind leaving mine in there. I'm not perfect. I never claim to be. Sometimes I make mistakes. Feel free to correct me if I do. So, back to what I was saying. Um, Operation Stargate, and don't get it twisted. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think. I mean, I guess. But here's the weird thing about that term, without me even going into the history of the term. Um, all around American courts every day, people are getting charged and tried for and convicted of conspiracy. So don't act like it doesn't happen. There's people in jail in prison right now for a conspiracy, and there's people probably about to go to prison for a conspiracy right now. As far as theories go, well, lots of scientists make theories every day. Some abide by theories that haven't really been proven, but it kind of seems like that's what the case is, even though there's not um, this a good amount of solid evidence that they would prefer. So it's still in theory, and that works out just fine for them. So I don't really completely understand why people get all weird when you put two words together when the most respected people in society, law and science, they use those terms separately and it works out just fine. I'm not sure if I expressed that the way, but you get the point what I'm saying. But somehow along the way, um, it became cool to ridicule people. And, sometimes that's all you really have to do to get people to shut up is to just ridicule them. Or just to get people not to listen to other people, you just ridicule them enough. Like, because nobody wants to be made fun of. And even when it comes to the people that would listen to them, they don't want to be made fun of for dealing with that person. So I think it has to do with a lot of bullying. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just speculating. Why? Because, well, that's what I do. That's why I started this podcast, Arrow the Adventurer, the podcast, brought to you by arrowtheadventurer.com. So let me tell you about Operation Stargate. You can Wikipedia this, or Google this, not to be confused with Operation Starfish Prime. I'm not making this up, as far as I know. I don't know, maybe my computer was hacked and this was put in there. You could look it up. Let me know if you get the same conclusions or answers or whatever. But I've I like documentaries like that and podcasts topics like that, and I've listened to a bunch of them. And so Operation Stargate, it was a Central Intelligence Agency's um investigation into extrasensory perception, in general, remote viewing, or clairvoyance specifically. At least in most cases. We'll get to that later. Um, if you want further information on that, you can listen to any other podcast or Wikipedia. They can give you um all the details about Uri Geller and all that stuff. That's not what I'm here to talk about exactly. I'm just speculating around it because, well, I like to comment on things, and this is how I make my comments heard. Because I just want to know if they make sense to anybody or not. So anyways, moving along. Remote viewing. Actually, let's go past that for right now. No, I changed my mind. Let's stay right here. I was going to go into the book about, or the book called Men Who Stare at Goats, and that had more to do with telekinesis. Um, well, we could go into that real quick, real quick. That was about these experiments to where, because you know Uri Geller, he claimed that he can do things like bend spoons with his mind and things like that. There's other people who claim they could do that. He was some Israeli guy. He was on TV shows and stuff like that in the 70s, I guess, and I got the CIA's attention, probably a lot of intelligence agencies' attention. And eventually, they got these people to stare at goats to try to kill the goats with their mind or whatever. Whatever they thought the science behind that was. But the thing that I see a problem with is the same thing that you see with all new weapons. If you have a new weapon and you want to know if it works, you have to test it out. And this is like straight, like killing something. So even if you did find somebody who could kill the goat with their mind, you not only have a person on your hands who's capable of essentially mind murder, but they have absolutely no problem killing an innocent animal, even if it is a goat. And then how do you control them or that? That's one of my points. It took me a long time to get to it. I actually just got off of my actual job and it's pretty late right now, so I'm trying to zone in. But I had to get it done because why wait till tomorrow when you could do it now? So that's what I wanted to say. Um, when it came to men who stare at goats and them attempting to get people to create um I guess mental assassins. What, I don't know what you would call them. Mental warriors. But like, not to mention, you're experimenting with people who may or may not have gifts that you don't have and you know nothing about. It's not like, you train somebody with an assault rifle and then you could go grab an assault rifle and shoot at them if they decide to start shooting whoever they wanted to. It's not the same case. So, I was wondering if that story is true. I mean, what did they do about it? Like, what was the plan of action? Um, if somebody went like AWOL or something like that. Because they came to the conclusion, at least with remote viewing, that, or some of them did, said that anybody can do it. Anybody can train to be do, or anybody can train to do it. But some, it just came natural. Were like way more natural to them. Um, I read an actual quote. I don't know who said it, but it was in relation to this story. It said, you can teach anybody music or to play an instrument, but you can't teach them to be Mozart. You feel me? And that goes for a lot of different skills. Like, you can teach people some things, but some things are just very natural, and there's very little competition when it comes to them in that category. Anyways, moving along. So that made me think about X-Men. I kind of touched out on this on my ebook. Um, it's on Amazon.com right now. It's called "I'm Not Insane, I'm Informed, and Thank You for Your Time" by Arrow Fisher. But it made me think about X-Men. One, the only mutant in X-Men that even seems like it could be real is the most powerful X-Men of them all. And that is the X in X-Men, Professor Xavier. He's, well, Rogue is actually might be stronger. It's a toss up. Um Hence the name, ironically, just occurred to me, her name is Rogue. You know what I'm saying? So you have Professor X and then you have Rogue. The two most powerful mutants and the only one that seem even remotely plausible um in the real world if such a thing could be possible. I mean Wolverine seems kind of plausible. I mean the whole claws things maybe not, but people who heal fast and are a bit impervious to. Well, he wasn't impervious to pain. He just healed really fast, I think. Um, but anyways, so like going to the movie about X-Men, and they essentially start these witch hunts for mutants because they're scared, feel threatened, things like that. And I use the term witch hunt on purpose because now when you think of things like sorcery, witchcraft, and voodoo, and all those different kind of what we would call magic could fall in the same category as mutants and um the X-Men world. So, and going back to what I said originally, the only ones that seem most plausible are just basic people with E.S.P. Oh, I left out one. I said clairvoyance and I said telekinesis. There's also premonition. And I said mediumship too. So those are like the main different extrasensory perceptions that people consider. Now I'm not saying any of this is real or fake. I'm just touching down on things that people already discuss. So now also consider the following. You had Professor Xavier's side and you had Magneto's side. Like if E.S.P was real, you could totally have like secret society wars going on right now. And a good reason why you wouldn't know them to be real is because they don't want to be the victim or subjected to witch hunts or lab tests or some crazy shit like that. Which is actually what happened in X-Men. Like they were like stuck in labs and people wanted to hurt them just because they were paranoid and they had power that they did like outsiders didn't know how to control. So That's interesting stuff to think about if you believe that those things could be real. Now, as far as other fortune tellers and things like that, I don't know if they're real or not. I'm not saying they are real or not. I'm just speculating on things that people already discuss. Now, when it comes to premonitions, I wonder sometimes how much media has changed the psychic world. Like, can you imagine if you did get premonitions and, like, whether it be in dreams or you be in a trance of some sort, or however they may get their stuff, if such a thing exists, and you see a war happening, but the war that you're seeing is on television in the future, like you or somebody is watching TV in the future, and you're just like, you could be in a movie theater watching the war, but in your mind all you see is the war, so you don't know. He was like, oh, there's war. So you don't know what you're looking at. Half the time, you know what I'm saying? It could be past, present, or future. You never know what you're even looking at. It's like, why even bother paying attention to it? Just speculating. So going back to the secret society wars, here's another thing. So I said before with the whole mind reading and thought projection thing. Um, Now those two can actually be accomplished psychologically. But if they weren't psychological, can you imagine the ability to plant thoughts in the head of your potential enemy, which is something that they do teach in war schools and psychological warfare. Also, reading or trying to predict what they're gonna do based on, I guess, their character and actions and state of being, I guess. But the difference between psychology and what would be E.S.P is psychology is based on the actions of the past experiments. You're assuming they're going to act like that because the majority will act like that, or based on a certain pattern of characteristics, you assume that's how they're going to act. And an E.S.P, because, well, you're in there. You're in there. Um, but could you imagine, like, the type of harassment that one could conduct if they could do either? And there's actually scientists who kind of do believe that, not on a warfare state, but just the fact that sometimes it's just weird about what people think, how they think, and when they think it. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that one. I don't know. But that's all I have for today. I probably should have waited to do this episode, but you know what? I could always do a part two. But I wanted to get it out the way. hopefully it makes sense, because I'm not going to erase it. This is episode 6 of Arrow the Adventurer, the podcast, brought to you by arrowtheadventurer.com. Please subscribe, follow, definitely share, whether you agree or not. I do believe that's all I have for today. Or this morning. It's actually like 2:47 in the morning. But thanks for listening. If you stayed with me this long, perhaps I'll have something better prepared in the future. But I'm not a professional. I'm just podcasting. Everybody be safe. Peace.